Have you ever stopped to question the invisible forces around you, silently affecting your health? In the hustle and bustle of our everyday lives, we are constantly surrounded by invisible waves of energy. These waves, known as electromagnetic radiation, are emitted by many of the devices we interact with daily. From the microwave heating up your leftovers to the cell phone you're likely using to watch this video, even the Wi-Fi connecting us right now, and the power lines crisscrossing above our heads, these all emit electromagnetic radiation. It's a silent, unseen part of our modern existence, as integral to our lives as the air we breathe. But just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's harmless. The potential impacts of this pervasive energy on our well-being are being increasingly scrutinized by scientific and health communities. While these forces are invisible and silent, their impacts on our health might be significant. Now, you may wonder, how does this invisible energy affect our health? Well, let's unravel this mystery together. You see, electromagnetic radiation is everywhere. It's in the sunlight that warms our skin, the radio waves that carry our favorite tunes, and even the microwaves that heat our food. But it's also in the Wi-Fi signals that fill our homes, the mobile phone towers that dot our landscapes, and the power lines that crisscross our cities. The human body, as it turns out, is not an impervious fortress. Like a sponge, it absorbs some of this omnipresent energy. The amount absorbed, known as the specific absorption rate, varies depending on the frequency of the radiation and the body's composition. High-frequency radiation, like X-rays and gamma rays, can be particularly harmful as they have enough energy to damage cells and DNA directly. On the other hand, low-frequency radiation, like that from our phones and Wi-Fi routers at a distance, doesn't have enough energy to cause this direct damage. Instead, some scientists theorize that it could cause harm indirectly through a process known as oxidative stress. This is a natural process that can lead to damage if it becomes too intense or goes on for too long. Radio frequency radiation from a cell phone, for example, drops dramatically over distance, meaning that at 10 times the distance from your head, the signal strength is 100 times less. At 100 times the distance, it's 10,000 times less, and for this reason, the cell phone has to generate a fairly high-power signal. And again, for this reason, phone manufacturers document that the phone should at all times be at least 10 millimeter or more from your body. The regulators set an exposure limit based on this distance from your body, but they don't use a body and instead use a dummy. The fact is that your body absorbs radiation in different ways to a plastic dummy, so even the regulators are basing exposure on false data, and how can they not? They can't really take a human and strap a phone to their head for 20 years and see how that affects them. It's a best guess approach, weighing in the likely health impact versus the industry who are funding the regulators. The question is not whether electromagnetic radiation affects us, but how and to what extent. It is clearly a long-term issue, and whilst it's easy to dismiss the guy who kept his phone in his top pocket and developed breast cancer directly beneath it, or the guy who wore a headset at work and had face cancer directly beneath the antenna as outliers, there is clearly a concern in the medical community. And yet, despite the potential risks, the debate on electromagnetic radiation continues. We know if there is damage, it's a long-term issue in most cases, and that means decades. We know that the sort of levels we're seeing people, even children, exposed to today has only been happening for 10 years, less in some countries. We know that as the years march on, we're likely to see an increase of this radiation rather than a decrease. And we know that for every independent study that questions the safety of electromagnetic radiation, the industry will present a similar and far better funded study concluding the opposite. We saw this exact behavior 20 years ago in the tobacco industry, fighting off claims of harm for those dying from the effects of smoking. Today, when a manufacturer is sued for harm by someone with a condition that in all likelihood was caused by a device worn or used, the manufacturer can simply rely on the fact that they complied with the regulation. So what should we take away from all this? Firstly, let's remember that electromagnetic radiation is a part of our everyday life. It's in the airwaves that carry our favorite radio shows, in the light that brightens our homes, and in the technology we use daily. It's an unseen part of our modern world, and we and our children are bathed in it constantly. Secondly, we've explored the potential health impacts of electromagnetic radiation. While it's true that high levels can lead to serious health issues, the effects of lower levels, such as those we're typically exposed to, have a much slower effect on us, and we're not likely to see the extent of that effect for another 10 years or more. In the end, until we know for sure, you have to make your own decisions and stay informed.